Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, we'll discuss the disputed Republican primary in Congressional District 5, and a new statewide poll shows the presidential race in Arizona is a toss-up. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Howard Fisher of the Capital Media Services, and Jim Small of Arizona Capital Times. A Maricopa County Superior Court judge today allowed additional uncounted ballots to be included in the Nip and Tuck Republican primary for Congressional District 5. And when we say Nip and Tuck, we mean out of like 86,000 votes. We got less than 20 deciding this thing right now. What's the latest here?
Right. So a judge said, okay, we've got 18 ballots that the campaigns brought forward. 18 ballots from among those that the campaigns brought forward. I find that these 18 need to be counted. They counted them, and Andy Biggs' lead grew. So he now leads Christine Jones by 16 votes instead of 9.
Yes, but this is not the end of it, and we know this for a couple of reasons. Number one, Jones's attorney pointed out that these are ballots that were cast by people who went to a polling place, went to the wrong polling place, were given a provisional ballot even after being told you can't vote here, but were not told we're not going to count your vote. And the judge said, look, poll workers should have told them that, and therefore their votes were cheated. There are more than 100 such ballots apparently out there. And the question becomes, well, if we're going to count these 18, should we count the other, 120 or so of those? And would that then bring Christine back up on top? And so let's just say, I'm assuming we'll be back in court by Monday.
Well, and we're here in the first place because I remember on election night and even the day after, Christine Jones was being congratulated and celebrated. She had beaten Andy Biggs by a couple hundred votes, whatever. All of a sudden, another count is done and Andy Biggs is ahead. I mean, it's kind of odd.
Yeah, it was one of those, statistical anomalies are anomalous for a reason, but this definitely was one. I mean, basically, the way it worked was heading into that final day of counting that a week ago today. Essentially, Andy Biggs needed to outpace Christine Jones by about 7 percentage points, a little bit more than about 7.5 percentage points. Up to that point, he had not done so. Obviously, he was trailing, and even among the ballots that have been counted after Election Day, the so-called late earlies, which is basically when people show up at the polls, drop off their early ballot, and it just takes longer time to process those. Even among those, he was beating her, but he was only beating her by about 3-ish points on average. And suddenly, in that one count, he beat her by that 7+ percentage points, and from then, basically it was over, and there were another couple of counts that came in that Andy Biggs continued to beat her, although not by such a large margin. But it was basically, kind of this one batch of ballots that when they got counted, they got tabulated, they came in and he hit that number he needed to.
Is there any reason to think that they might? Obviously this will go to a recount, but that specific batch of ballots might be examined apart from the others?
No indication. I mean, that certainly could have been an issue in the litigation. So far it hasn't been, and whether it would be going forward, I guess it's probably too early to see. But the way the recount works is Maricopa County did their recount on their machines, or did the initial count on their machines with their software. On the recount, it'll be done by a different kind of machine and a different kind of software that the Secretary of State's office will arrange for. So, if there was some kind of mechanical issue with the machine or something like that, which the county has stressed that there were no issues, they had no problems, then certainly, a full recount of the entire thing would find that out.
And we're looking at the numbers now, and again, it's just it's absurd how close this race is. And now the last batch that came in, most of those votes weren't even for Biggs or Jones. Correct? Or
So the way it worked was Andy Biggs essentially stayed steady. In all of these late early ballots that got counted, he stayed more or less steady within a percentage point of kind of his tracking. Christine Jones in this one thing, instead of losing to Biggs by 3 points, she lost to him by 7 points. And pretty much all those votes, when you look at it, they all went to Justin Olson. who was one of the other candidates in the
Where'd
race.
that come from?
And then, on the next batch of ballots that got counted, I mean, everything went back to kind of the status quo, went back to Biggs, Jones about 3 points behind, and Olson about 3 or 4 points behind that.
Which raises the interesting question, who did Stapley and Olson steal from? I mean, we can sit here and we can analyze the tea leaves of, well, did Stapley, would his votes have gone perhaps to Biggs or not? And, Justin is off in his own little world. When you've got, as you say, 13 votes pretty much separating them, you really don't know. Is there a spoiler in this race?
And then sort of an interesting sort of side note to the today's developments is the reason the judge allowed these extra 18 ballots to be counted is that he looked at it and he said, the county didn't instruct poll workers on what to do. These were people who walked in on election day and they were at the wrong place. And the poll worker said, well, you can cast a provisional ballot. But what they did not tell them is that, well, it won't be counted if you cast it here. And they also did not tell them, but we'll look up your proper polling place, and if you got the time or if you're so inclined, go do it. They didn't get that kind of instruction, so there was no way for those 18 voters to remedy the situation.
So it's not that the poll workers made a mistake by not telling them. You're telling me the county did not instruct them to do so in the first place?
So says the judge.
That's the issue. It's the question is the ruling that we reviewed earlier didn't say poll worker John Smith did this at this poll, saying we looked at the instruction manual, we've looked at the training of the poll workers. They should have been told, A, somebody walks in, you tell them, no, you can't vote here, go to your poll. B, if you insist, we'll give you a provisional ballot, but forgot, as Mary Jo pointed out,
It's not going
Part
to
C.
count. It's not going to count.
But they didn't know that.
And this points to who? Who would be responsible for instructing the poll workers for this?
That would be Helen Purcell and Karen Osborne, I guess, by directed, kind of down the food chain to the elections department. They were obviously not happy with the judge's ruling today. They basically viewed it as the judge ignoring the law, ignoring the letter of the law, and certainly it made more work for them, but it also, as Howie and Mary Jo said, I mean, it essentially puts the blame at their feet, and especially for Helen Purcell, who's ran a very close primary election and has a challenger in the general election. I think it's one more kind of bit of what's going on at the county, why do we keep having election problems, and that's no doubt going to be the drum beat that we continue to hear.
And speaking of Purcell's very close primary win, which is a win, if Christine Jones has made the point that there are 136 ballots, I think, that really should be counted that fall into this kind of category in District 5. Well, if you expand that out to how many fall into that category countywide, it's like 700 some. If you count those, it could arguably put Purcell, could flip a race. She only won by about 200 and some votes.
And again, this was another race that at the last second flipped in and of itself, did it not? I mean, didn't we, election night, we were saying, Helen Purcell looks like she lost,
But
then here comes another count.
You can never tell on election
And that's,
night.
look.
Well, you can never tell, but goodness gracious, when you're talking 9 and 100 and some odd votes.
Understood, but I remember, for example, Janet Napolitano's first race against Matt Salmon, where it took about a week and a half, and each night we went in, we analyzed which precincts haven't been counted. Are they coming from the East Valley? Well, those are Matt's precincts. Are they coming from Central Phoenix? And so that becomes the issue, and you can drive yourself crazy trying to figure out whose early ballots are these. And now, particularly with early ballots, late early ballots, early ballots, overseas ballots, and Lord knows what else.
All right, so the recount next week, is this going to happen next week?
Theoretically, on Monday, there should be the County Board of Supervisors will certify its results. The state will have its official canvass, and after that, Secretary of State Michelle Reagan will head to court, tell the court, hey, we need a recount, and the court will order a recount, which will then begin.
And we'll congratulate Justin Olson for winning Congressional District 5, the primary. I mean, goodness. Okay, let's move on here. We had a big poll, the Arizona Republic, Morrison Institute, Cronkite News poll. Lots of stuff covered here, but let's get to some of the biggies. Howie, Trump versus Clinton, the big matchup, and some of the previous polls, people were kind of raising an eyebrow saying, I can't believe it's all that close. This one says it's that close.
It's that close, and that becomes the issue that, look, we've talked about this before, everyone's expectations of Trump were, oh my God, nothing's going to happen. He keeps striking chords. Now, the poll was out there for a number of weeks, so I don't know what things affected. Sometimes you can tell, well, maybe it was a trip to Mexico or something else. But he's clearly struck a chord among people. plus Hillary's negatives. You cannot underestimate the fact that there are people out there who think she's untrustworthy, think she's a liar, thinks that she's guilty of.
wait a minute.
I was going to say, what are you talking
But
about?
she came out on
She
top.
came out
Here.
ahead.
I
And this
understand.
is a state that hasn't voted for a
I
Democrat
understand.
since you started wearing
Yes,
sharp ties
sharp
there.
But that's the point. You know, under normal circumstances, Trump would be, you know, he's a joke. And that's my point. And Hillary should do better, even in a red state like that.
We had
but that- I
the
mean-
governor appearing with the joke, quote unquote the joke. So I mean, he's not that big of a joke to Republicans in Arizona.
He's the party nominee. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, most Republicans are going to fall in line, Jeff Flake perhaps, you know, notwithstanding. But the poll did show a very slight lead for Clinton. It was well within the margin of error, and most importantly, low 20% of the voters surveyed said they didn't know. They had made up their mind.
22.9 undecided. Undecided leaning toward Clinton, I think 40% to 37%, but 23% undecided. It's a toss-up in a variety of ways, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. At 23% undecided, actually, that number seems kind of high.
It
If you
is.
think about it, I mean, this campaign's been going on a long time. I mean, we have two very polarizing figures, like Howie was saying. Two people who, you know, I think most people, my guess is those undecideds, a lot of them are people who are wondering whether they're going to cast a ballot. Are they going to vote at the top of the ticket, or are they just going to skip it and go down and just start with the
I
McCain
think
race?
That's the key. That's exactly the key, because there are people who are going, oh my God, can I vote for either one of these people? And they just can't. There are people who will not be able to do either one of them. And that's why you've got nearly 1 out of 4
That's
who are
a
saying,
lot of undecideds, yeah.
Yeah.
Hispanics, Clinton 56%, Trump 15%, Hispanics 77% against him, just against him, with a plus or minus 10%. That could be key, couldn't it? I mean, that's a big number.
Yeah, and actually that number is not too far off from something that Latino Decisions issued today. It was a poll of Latino
interesting.
voters, and in Arizona they found that Latinos favored Clinton 72% to 17%.
All right, so that's a toss-up. Let's go to the U.S. Senate race. The poll showing that McCain's, as far as favorability is concerned, McCain's favorability 49%. Kirkpatrick's, I think, was 36%, something along those. 49%, not bad. Not 50% though.
no, well, he said this is the race of his career. He's got a very popular foe who is taken some nice conservative positions on things like natural resources and such, been very careful with it. She's also not been out there a lot. You haven't seen a lot of press conferences either, so she figures, I'm just going to tread water. She may figure Clinton will carry her over the top. McCain is doing himself no favors either, I think, with some of the Trump people either. You know, he's... you know, we talked a couple of weeks ago around this table, you know, the fact that it's Jeff Flake who's making the point that Trump is saying bizarre things, and that here's McCain saying, I'm supporting the party's nominee, damn it.
All right, so those are McCain's approval ratings. Do we have Kirkpatrick's? I believe we have Kirkpatrick's as well. Again, 36%. But Mary Jo, the amazing thing about Kirkpatrick's numbers are lots of folks still don't really have an opinion of her. They don't know her, do they?
No, they don't know her. I mean, Ann Kirkpatrick, you know, has been representing northern Arizona in Congress, you know, for 6 of the last 8 years. She was in the state legislature briefly before that, but again, she's out of Flagstaff, so she is not as established in, you know, the major media markets where the population is. So her campaign's got some work to do. You can't just bank on being the not McCain candidate.
Right.
And that comes down to getting out there. You know, if she did a few press conferences, she'd get some earned media, but she seems to want to say, oh no, I'm just going to do my ads.
Hispanic voters a little more favorable toward Kirkpatrick, 56% unfavorable toward McCain, even though he was at one point part of the Gang of Eight. I don't know what he is anymore.
Well, he was going to build the dang
Well,
wall,
he was
too.
going to do that as well, so I guess that explains that. Jim, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, at the time of the poll, they didn't really have a Penzone versus Arpaio kind of a matchup, but Arpaio's unfavorability ratings in Maricopa County, where it counts, they're high.
They are. They're quite high, and we've seen this in polls over the last several years, and I mean really over the last decade. You can see the trend line of, you know, Sheriff Joe going from being, you know, what he would claim the most popular politician in the country to, you know, someone who is like very much like John McCain, I think, in kind of the political fight of his career, this is going to absolutely be a tough race. I mean, there's a lot that's happened even in just the last 4 years since he got reelected. I mean, the federal, the DOJ stuff, this contempt of court, this
But does any of it matter? How many times have we sat around this table and said, "Oh, this is the year Sheriff Joe, look, the guy's got unfavorable ratings, he's got qualified people running against him," and yet, guy with $10 million in the bank, a guy who takes the DOJ thing and turns it around and says, "See, that proves Obama's out to get me." There are enough people out there who believe this, and yet, even if he gets indicted, he will say, "Look," he will send out a fundraising letter on that.
Joe Arpaio has become embedded into our political infrastructure. He's probably more durable than the I-17. I mean, it's just he gets beat up, he got some potholes, he got some problems, but there he is.
Well, I think, you're talking about the Hispanic ratings, and the favorabilities on the different candidates earlier. The Hispanic vote is a key component for the Democrats this year. And so you've got Trump at the top of the ticket, who is arguably going to, encourage more Hispanics to register to vote, to show up to vote, even if it's just a protest vote, to vote against him. I think the real impact of having the Hillary Clinton campaign spending money in Arizona for field staffers and for get out the vote efforts is not going to be on the presidential race, because, realistically, Arizona has 11 electoral votes. That's not going to swing. The chances of Arizona being the swing vote on that is very tiny. But it's going to affect down the ticket. It's going to affect Ann Kirkpatrick. It's going to affect especially Sheriff Joe Arpaio. If the Democrats are successfully able to mobilize Hispanics and younger Hispanics, especially people who are under the age of 30, they're going, in all the polling data you see, Hispanics overwhelmingly don't like Joe Arpaio. They don't like Donald Trump.
I was going to say, in this
the
poll,
younger,
yes.
even the McCain one in the Republic poll,
Yes.
Younger Hispanics really don't like John McCain. They really don't like Joe Arpaio. That's where you're going to see the change. And so if they can move the Hispanic turnout from 16% to 17% of the electorate, if they move it north of 20%, that is bad news for a lot of Republicans up and down the ticket.
And something else that'll bring them out is the minimum wage ballot proposal. It's on the ballot. Voters are going to get to decide, do we want to raise our minimum wage to $12 an hour gradually up until to the year 2020? That has strong appeal, with everybody, with most of the all the demographic groups that we polled in this
I was going to say, I think we have the numbers for the minimum wage increase. If we could get those, and we'll get to marijuana in a second here, so to speak, Howie. But the minimum wage increase 2-to-1 margin in favor. That surprise you at all?
Well, it didn't, because that's exactly what the proposition passed by in 2006. Remember, we didn't have a state minimum wage, and we went from $5.15 an hour, which was the federal minimum wage, to $6.75 an hour, and it passed by a 2-to-1 margin. And I think there are a lot of folks saying, okay, $8.05 an hour, okay, that's $16,000 and change a year. You support a family on that. And despite the restaurants saying, oh, it's only a training wage, there are a large number of people in this state supporting families on that.
How hard will the Chamber of Commerce, how hard will business interests fight this?
They're going to fight it, but if their polling is showing the same thing that this poll shows, I don't think that it's going to be much more than token opposition. It's going to be, we're opposed to it, we don't like it, we'll put some money into it. But I think that they're more likely to direct their money other places, like, say, making sure John McCain gets reelected, or making sure that the marijuana thing doesn't pass, because that, they're opposed to both of those, and there's, like it or not, there's a finite pool of resources, and they got to decide where they're going to get the best value for their money on the campaign.
Which may leave the Restaurant Association out there on its own, because Steve Chukri, who's also a county supervisor, heads the Restaurant Association, is just fearful. This is an industry that a large percentage of their workers are making a heck of a lot less than $12 an hour, even with tips.
Well, they wouldn't make, there's a different provision for tip workers.
But even then, you get a $3 an hour tip.
And it's also a gradual increase, and I think that was a key factor in the question as well.
Well,
it's not just, boom, you go from 8 to 12.
But there's a reason that it went to 12, as somebody pointed out, not to 15, which has been discussed on the national level.
And it has another sweetener in there that a lot of people, it resonates with a lot of people. Paid time off, that you get at least 3 days paid time off for a year, 5 days for larger employers. And there are a lot of folks who say, look, I've been in a situation, I got to take my kids to the doctor. Should I have to, go without pay? Should I have to risk being fired for taking my kids to the doctor? And that's really important to a lot of folks.
All right, the marijuana initiative was also mentioned, and that was also on this table here just a couple of minutes ago, I think, if I can remember correctly. And it was also mentioned in the poll. And, once again, it looks like the voters are saying, at least those that were surveyed, okay, Whatever.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, it's sort of soft. I mean, I believe it was like 50% support, but you had 10% undecided. And this is, you always fight. Usually when these things start, the support side is the strongest vote you're going to get, right? And then the campaign, basically, if you're for it, your job is to shore up that number, and if you're the opponent, it's to erode that number. So it seems like it could only go downhill from here, and this one's going to be a fight.
I was going to say, already they're saying, the critics and the opposition are already saying, we haven't begun showing ads on this thing yet, so don't take this too very seriously. Howard, are you taking this very seriously?
Well, I take it very seriously to the extent that the question is, are they going to have the money for those ads? I mean, the fact is that the proponents, fueled by the Marijuana Policy Project, fueled by the dispensaries who stand to make millions of dollars if they get their new retail stores, have basically outspent the opponents 3-1. And now, there is some new money coming in. We found out this week that a company called Insys, which manufactures an opiate, gave $500,000 to the no side, which of course raises some interesting questions of what's the interest in a company that manufactures opiates of keeping marijuana off the market.
Tell us, Howie.
Well, depending on who you talk to, the proponents of Prop 205 say, well, they just want their own more dangerous drugs there. I can't say that's true. This is an in-state company. This is a Chandler company, a guy who says, look, I have some concerns about the measure. There are reasons to have concerns about Prop 205. But it doesn't help. The optics of it is, so opiates good, marijuana not so much.
All right, we got to keep moving here. The poll also had an approval rating look for Governor Doug Ducey, and 44% apparently view Doug Ducey as favorably. That's okay, that's good. Jim, again, people still don't seem to know who he is.
Well, not so much they don't know who he is, just that they don't have an opinion of what kind of a job he's doing.
That's kind of like not knowing who he is. I mean, it's metaphorically speaking. I mean, look at it, 20% don't know or refuse to answer the question. Does it surprise you at all?
No, not really, because, I mean, people pay attention to politics as elections come near, and they're going to pay attention to, he's a new governor, he's still in his second year, in his first term. They're going to pay attention more once the election starts to draw near, when something major, something, either really, really good happens or really, really bad happens. And while I think that on the whole, Doug Ducey is pleasing to voters, there hasn't been any major hills or valleys. We haven't seen any of
wait a
that.
minute.
With Prop 123, he was the face of that thing, wasn't he?
Right, and that's what was surprising to me is that Prop 123, now it did squeak by, but it passed, and it was hotly, that's partially why it should have raised everybody's awareness more, because it was such a squeaker, and it was hotly debated on
But
education
it passed in an
funding.
election where 20% of people voted. It didn't pass in an election
Right,
where you
but it
had
was
70% turnout.
But it was on the airwaves all the time. And what gets me is that it just didn't really move the needle on his numbers. I think at the beginning of the year he said he's in the 40s. Well, he's still in the 40s.
Well, I'll tell you the other piece of it, and relates to Prop 123. He has promised, that's the first step. He keeps saying this was the first step.
Oh, yes.
He gets an incomplete, because the next thing, I think what that 20% is hanging on to that we see on the monitor, is that these are folks saying, are you going to follow through? Or was this just some little kiss and a promise? And I think that's what his fate's going to hang on. Now, it's curious that it was today he actually filed the paperwork for his 2018 re-election campaign, so we know he wants another term. Now, whether voters want to give it to him, we have to see.
That happened today. That's breaking
Yes.
news from Howard Fisher. Okay, before we go, other breaking news, and Howie, we'll let you take care of this now. It sounds like APS fighting those subpoenas from Bob Burns to find out who they spent on campaign.
Yes, as we've talked about before, Bob Burns, not getting any cooperation from the other 4 Republicans, has decided, well, I'm going to subpoena the records of APS and Pinnacle West to find out what they spent on charitable contributions, political donations, lobbying fees. And he has behind him an Attorney General's opinion that says you have that authority. APS filed suit this afternoon in Superior Court saying he doesn't have the authority. It has nothing to do with what the commission is doing, how it spends its charitable money or anything else, and asking a judge to quash the subpoenas. Now, this is timely because next week he's going to be sitting in an office saying, where's my box of subpoenas? And I don't know how quickly a judge can act, but they've gone into court tonight to ask for a temporary restraining order.
But how do you know if APS spent the way it said it did without looking at the
Right.
documents?
Well, and that becomes the issue. Now, the question becomes, was the money related to ratepayers' or was it related to shareholders, and that's what the fight's going to be?
All right, we got to stop it right there. That will be a topic for next Friday's Journalist Roundtable. Good to have you all here. Monday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear how middle school students are learning to solve crimes using STEM skills, and we'll check out the winners of Arizona Forward's Environmental Excellence Award. That's Monday on Arizona Horizon. Tuesday, the impact of continued tax cuts on Arizona's economy. Wednesday, a debate on a proposed visitor center at the entrance to the McDowell-Sonoran Preserve. Thursday, hear about a program aimed to convince dropout students to get back to school. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thanks for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.